receiver. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this alumni panel. We're going to run about an hour, so stand up your feet and get warm. But you know, as we all talk and are engaged, hopefully the cold fingertips, that feeling will go away. But I am on the board of trustees of the school for 6 years and counting now. A parent at the school, although it occurred to me, it's the last few months I can say that. My daughter's in 8th grade, and my son is at the San Francisco Waldorf High School. They both attended here from preschool through 8th, the whole ride. We have a typical story. We came for preschool, loved it, said, well, you know, kindergarten, let's give that a shot, and then ended up sucked in all the way through 8th grade. So, and I'm pleased to say that even though my daughter will graduate this spring, I'll still have a connection to the school because my lovely wife, Fernanda, is the Buttercup preschool teacher. So some of you may have been in that room earlier today. So it also occurred to me driving in here today, and it's such a beautiful day, that in looking out at the campus, it's such a wonderful place for children, for preschool, kindergarten, grades 1 through 8. And they really use this campus, every square inch of it. From the oak trees, kindergarten, they start taking hikes in the hills around the school, rain or shine. It's really wonderful. And I grew up in a rural New England town, no shortage of trees and forests, but for some reason, where I went to school, when we were outside, we were on a blacktop. That was it. It was just asphalt. And it occurred to me, coming in here today and seeing the campus again, what a pity that was. So it's one of the many attributes of the school. So let me ask, if I could turn the tables and ask the audience a few quick questions, just by show of hands. Who among you today is your first touch, your first experience with Waldorf education? Just by show of hands. Okay, good. And then who here today is your first time being on this campus, this school? Okay, several of you. Well, good. And who here is making a decision sometime in the next year about where to send their child to school? All right, good. Well, I hope today's panel is illuminating. No matter where you and your children are, whether you're thinking of preschool or grades, we have a very impressive panel here today. All are products of Waldorf education in some form or another. So I'm going to do a quick intro, and then what we'd like to do today is I'll kind of give them a couple of canned questions designed to get everyone talking and you thinking, and that hopefully about 20 minutes or so, and then have the last half hour or so open to you all to ask questions and talk to our panelists today. I'm going to start from your left to right. Our first panelist is Jack Berkenfield. Jack attended this school, Marin Waldorf School, kindergarten through 8th grade. Then went on to San Rafael High School, and where he was a volunteer with the Marin Search and Rescue. I'm sure he has some adventure stories there. And then was also a sailing instructor in San Francisco Bay. So busy high school years, and he went on to California Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo, where he studied journalism, and also worked as a broadcast engineer for the State University's television and radio programming. And he's our youngest panelist at 25 years old, and he's currently a professional video editor and a post-production specialist. And not only is he speaking on our panel today, but he's also, I don't know how he's doing it, managing the recording with his assistant Sophie of today's event. So welcome, Jackie, thank you. Seated next to Jack is Jasper van Brakel. Jasper grew up in the Netherlands, where he attended Waldorf school there from kindergarten through 12th grade, the whole ride. And he is currently the president and CEO of RSF Social Finance, where he directs impact investing. And he's also currently, I think it's still currently, the chair of the board of Gaia Herbs. It's a North Carolina company. And prior to this, prior to his time now with RSF, he was the CEO of Weleda North America, which is a biodynamic and organic consumer products company. And he's a graduate of Harvard Business School, a master's degree in economics from Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And he has 4 children, he and his wife, Marika, who's a kindergarten teacher at the school. They have 4 children, 2 still here and 2 in the Waldorf High School in San Francisco. So thank you, Jasper. Tamara Mendelsohn is with us in the middle. And Tamara is a Waldorf student, a product of K through 12 at the Green Meadows School in New York. She graduated Wellesley College with degrees in economics and comparative literature, went on to get an MBA at MIT in Boston, and she's currently the Chief Marketing Officer for Eventbrite, a San Francisco tech company, and before that was a senior analyst with Forrester Research, a company involved with e-commerce technology. And her son attends this school in the kindergarten. Welcome. And some of you heard, and now can get a chance to talk to Michael Frescus, who was our cello player. Thank you for that. It was beautiful. He attended this school from grades 4 through 7, from 95 to 98. Went to Sonoma High School, and then Sonoma State University in the cello performance and chamber music program. He's taught music at a Waldorf school in Sonoma. He's a professional musician in New York City and San Francisco. And he's now the artistic director for a nonprofit in Sonoma called Vivo Youth Orchestras. And that's their mission is to bring music to youth all around the country. Thank you, Michael. And on the end here is Fernanda Sampaio. I was immediately upon meeting Fernanda, liked her, and it's I don't know what the odds are of having 2 Fernandas from São Paulo, Brazil. My wife is also from São Paulo, Brazil. I'm named Fernanda, so it's a pleasure to meet another one. Fernanda attended Waldorf school from the age of 2 through 14 years old in São Paulo. She earned her bachelor's and MBA, I think in Brazil. Yeah. And she moved to California in 2017. And she works at Google. It's a small company in the peninsula. Google as a global brand marketer and working with product innovation and with a focus on bringing solutions to technology that make technology and its applications more inclusive to people all around the world. So welcome, Fernanda. And her son is a prospective student here. Pleasure to meet Theo. And he'll be preschool age, I think, at this time next year. So welcome.
Thank you.
So I want to start off, and you have the mic? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll just for convenience, we'll start with Fernanda and just go down the line. So to get us talking, to ask our panelists about Waldorf's emphasis on educating the whole child. It's not just a tagline, it's an educational philosophy. And so the question just is, how has that shown up for you now that you have the advantage of a perspective looking back? What does that mean to you, and what has it meant to you in your further education, your professional career, and in your life, having an education focused on the whole child?
Well, we'll start with lucky, because I think not everywhere you get the chance to really learn about yourself as a whole and explore all the different things that you could explore, especially as a little kid. I think until today, if I think about my career, me as a person, I always find the Waldorf things that I learned, like my experience at Waldorf, as like really like a fundamental piece of who I am. Whether if like I'm having a stressful day at work and I need to ground myself, like, and like knowing which tools I have. So for example, like I still, even though I work in a tech company, I still have pottery as like a way for me to really like get the stress out of like have like a myself moment. So those abilities, those things that I learned from Waldorf, I think it stuck with me for today, and I'm really grateful because I often see myself, even though I was like from 2 to 14, and thankfully you're not saying our ages now, but like I look much younger, I will tell you that I am. But even though it was like for that short period, so it was a long time ago, I still see myself tapping back into the things that I learned as a Waldorf student, and for that I'm really grateful.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, especially now that I'm a teacher, there's this wonderful phrase that a lot of teachers eventually hear, which is, where we strive to be the teacher that we wish we had, which I love as a model, for anybody in a profession where you're interacting with youth. But I was lucky enough to kind of, emulate teachers that I actually did have. I'm not wishing for somebody who would pay attention to me and hold me in my music and shepherd me through difficult periods. Like I actually experienced that. So now, not only in working with students who are familiar with Waldorf education or who are in a system based on Waldorf education, but working with students who are not familiar or who haven't been quite held that way, I can employ all these wonderful things that I remember when I was in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, so I would say that and all the while taking into account that I'm encountering all of these different types of learners, these pure little souls who honestly come in neutral, and then we sort of shepherd them, and my job is to introduce all these, a harmonious way of thinking and being for them. But I've realized that kind of teaching the whole child and addressing and embracing all these different types of learners has helped me with adults quite a bit as well. So much, actually. I'll say, really, with the pressures when the pandemic was kind of progressing, adults were having a really hard time, and I used my experience as a Waldorf student and teacher to kind of be very forgiving and more loving than I think I would have been without that training. So yeah, to me it's a lifelong takeaway.
Well, Michael, before we pass on, in educating the whole child, I think part of what is meant by that is an education that focuses on what might have been the 3 R's for some of us in this room growing up: the reading, writing, arithmetic, but also music, drama, art, outdoor education, working with your hands. Now you've obviously continued on with the music piece of that in a large way. But do you see that in students, in modern day students that you're working with? Do you see that having a benefit?
Oh yeah. My favorite. Well, first, I don't know if any of you remember being a 4th grader and just kind of the random information you would share with your teacher, like unsolicited little story, anecdotes for the adult. And what I love is that, as oftentimes when I meet students, they'll come and just describe to me how challenging it is what we're doing. And later, they just come back and tell me how they're using music in their private young life to soothe and to feel at peace. When I ask something like, well, something broad, like what does music mean to you? And then they get this look on their face. Well, I like to play for my grandma because it makes her happy and it makes my mom happy too. And they're just kind of describing in whatever way the role that music and this particular art. Now, it doesn't have to be music, and this is what I tell a lot of parents too, who maybe are concerned before they ever see their child play an instrument. They're thinking, this is going to be really hard for my little one. I'm thinking, okay, let's just see. And I think even that process in just kind of exploring the wilderness of creativity with these young people, the child oftentimes feels not just soothed, but seen and a little stronger and a little less vulnerable and more creative and more willing to share music that maybe they wrote after dinner last night, things like that. So just in general, I think that when I've seen, especially, and in middle school too, when they're becoming these little, oftentimes, once we're doing a certain unit, they'll become these little songwriters and really get into their personality and their spirit through music with me, and I just always feel like, wow. And we applaud each other. We really, really bolster that kind of opportunity. So sorry, it's
Thank you.
how it's been going.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you spoke about really resonates with me, because for me, I think what that has translated into, this sort of focus on the whole child, and I see it in my classmates, in fellow alums that I just met today for the first time, a deep sense of self and self-confidence that I think is nurtured through the Waldorf education, because you're encouraged to be curious about your interests, to explore, trying something new, to take a leap and to see what happens. And I think that for me, what that's translated into is I hated the question as a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I could never answer it. I just had no idea. I kind of wanted to do everything. And even now when people ask me, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years, I cannot answer that question. And I think that I'm comfortable with that because of the education I received, because I learned that my sense of self is not connected to my profession or my job title or anything material, but is much more deeply rooted in my sense of curiosity for the world, and the possibilities of what I could do are endless. And so I think that's left me open to, in the career and in the corporate world, open to taking paths that are really unconventional, taking jobs that other people would be scared to or not feel like they maybe had the background, the education to take on. And I think it's just rooted in what I learned as a Waldorf student, which is to be curious about the world and to explore those options and those possibilities and do that with a deep sense of confidence. And I think that was produced by this attention to the whole self and this encouragement that I received throughout my education to just follow that curiosity.
Yeah, so for me, I don't think I would be sitting here with any kind of sense of confidence and not, be super nervous if it wasn't for having started acting in first grade. And, 12 years long, every year there's another play. And, having played music, I did not move on to then become a musician, and so appreciate that you did. My talents are elsewhere, but, when you talk about whole child development, those things really helped me personally in developing into who I am today. And it's hard to say, when you're in school, what's really happening, because you're in the middle of it. And then even later, I graduated high school in '92, so it's a while ago, but looking back, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what the things are or were that now are so helpful. But when I thought about this question, what comes up for me is that Waldorf teachers, they really care, in a very deep way. And that nourishes this confidence and courage that you were talking about. And I think that's very unique. For a Waldorf teacher, it's not a job. It's not just a job, right? It's really a mission. And as a child, as a human being going through that, that's a whole different level of nourishment and support that you're getting. That, of course, in addition to the writing and the math and everything else, that needs to be there too, and it is, and it was for me, is really, really special. So the whole child development, I think, what it does for me also so we have this thing at work that we always say, we invite our team members to bring their whole self to work, right? That's not a compromise, right? That's not being nice, but it's a genuine gesture of saying, if you bring your whole self to work, then we will be, better, more well-rounded as a team and as human beings. And we can just be comfortable in what we're good at, what we're not good at, that everybody has their edges, and that's fine. And being able to do that, I think, has to do with Waldorf education.
Yeah, for me, I think a big part of the educating the whole child is that, like, you, as a part of that, you have to learn how to do things that you're also not good at, which I think is not something that is super common in the world right now. There's a lot of specialization, in schools, and like, for example, for me, like, I was never a great sculptor, but that didn't mean that I didn't take pottery classes or do clay work. Instead, I had to learn how to do that, and it was a challenge. But what that gave me going forward was like this knowledge of how to learn. Like, the thing that Waldorf education gave me beyond everything else. And I think that the approach to the, like, educating the whole child is you really get the opportunity to learn how to learn, because you're not stuck into a place where, okay, I'm good at math, so all I did in school was math, and that's where I am. And it's like, great, you can go and do that later in your life, but you also learned how to do stuff that you wouldn't naturally have wanted to do, and that knowledge, the ability to be dynamic with your education and learn stuff on the fly, or learn things that are challenging, and just understand how you can learn those things, has been really valuable. I graduated college the year the pandemic started, and everything that I'd learned and planned for was all, like, ripped out, right? Like, I had to completely change what I was going to do with the skills I had, and the ability to go and show up day one on a job and say, look, I'm here to learn, and be able to learn. I owe that entirely to Waldorf education. I think, like, a little bit what Tamara was talking about, where there's this confidence that you can kind of do whatever. I think Waldorf not only gives you the confidence, but it also equips you with the tools to be successful with your curiosity. You can go out and pursue things that are new and different, and you're not gonna be completely lost. Like, not only do you have the confidence to go and start, but you have the skills to learn how to do that thing. And I think that's really what the whole child education has done for me.
Well, Jack, so, you have the mic, and you're the youngest panelist here, so this might be freshest for you in your memory. We heard a couple mentions of class plays, and just so folks who might not know, it's something that I thought as a parent was fantastic, and I was amazed, even in first, second grade, but all the way through 8th grade, there's at least one class play. Oftentimes the class teacher will write the play, something fresh and new, or they take a classic and adapt it for their class. But even in the young children, the first and second graders, I remember showing up as a parent to the first class play, like, oh, this is going to be adorable. Like, there'll be a costume that that covers the kid's face. There'll be a trip. There'll be a fall. No one will know anything. I was blown away. I mean, these children, they had not just a line or two. They were speaking in paragraphs, sometimes in unison, sometimes 2 or 3 at a time. I was astounded, and it only got more and more sophisticated as the class plays went on, culminating in 8th grade class play, which was really professional level. They also build the sets, design the sets, the students do. It was really terrific. So my question, Jack, is did you have a favorite class play or a role, or do you remember any of your lines? Is there anything? Everyone's gonna get this question.
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, you kind of remember them all. The whole time, Waldorf is so inundated with storytelling, and, like, the plays are really where you get to be the most hands-on with the stories. So, there are some great memories. Like, all of my memories are in this room. And like, for I think it was our 3rd grade play, we did Noah's Ark play, but we built the Ark on stage. So we went down to the wood shop, and we, with one of the parents who was the woodworking teacher at the time, we, like, basically built a half boat that could be assembled on stage. And, like, we did it. We were 3rd graders, and we cut it with the saws and sanded everything, and it looked awesome, and it was all shiny. And then we come up and we built the Ark on stage, and it was like, wow, holy cow, we did that. But I think my favorite role was we did a Moliere play in 7th grade where I got to do the lead. It was The Imaginary Invalid, and which is a great play. And there was a moment that I have, like, burned into my head where, like, I had to pretend to be dead on stage, and I stuck my tongue out really weird. And, like, I got off stage and the play was over, and my mom was like, oh, you really had your tongue hanging out there. And I remember remember for sure.
Same question? So, less relevant, if you're now thinking about pre-K, kindergarten, and first through 8th grade. But for me, it was in 11th grade where we performed My Fair Lady, the musical. And for those of you who know, I played Professor Higgins and had to do a lot of singing. And if there was one thing I wasn't going to do on stage, it was going to be singing. And my music teacher said, "I'm going to get you to sing on stage." And he literally took his free Saturdays to practice with me until I was confident and comfortable doing that. It was amazing.
So many memories. We also did a Moliere play in 7th grade, but I think we did Alice in Wonderland in 8th grade, and I got to play Alice, and that was like the highlight of my first through 8th theater career. But our senior class play was The Skin of Our Teeth, and we spent a lot of time not just bringing that play to life, but studying it and thinking about the meaning behind it and writing music to go along with it. And the approach of really interrogating what we were doing, not just learning the lines and performing, I think had a really lasting impression on me. And then there's the camaraderie of coming together as a class to produce something really magical. Like that opening night, there's no feeling that compares to the pride that you feel to produce something with your classmates, and the teamwork that is required to pull that off is that has, I think, been something that I've been trying to replicate as a leader since then, is to create that feeling of teamwork and the joy of creating something really magical for an audience.
Tamara, at the high school level, is it like the grades here, 1st through 8th, where everyone in class is in the play?
Yeah,
is that the same?
absolutely.
Okay.
Everybody has a role. Some people have, at that point, are if they're more interested in the costume design or set design, maybe play larger roles there and smaller roles on stage, but everybody has a speaking part on stage, yeah.
Yes, my plays were also in this room. I just was thinking, oh my goodness. So I was Poseidon right over here. I was a Roman general over there, and I was Romeo in 2nd grade over here. It's whoa. But I agree. I remember because I came in 4th grade, and I remember how impactful that ended up being. I didn't know that I would end up becoming a musician for the next 30 years of my years of my life, but it really did. Many things really did start here at Marin Waldorf. Foreign language, visual art, music. This is like my home base, but I didn't know until I got here, actually. And I remember when we were first doing the class play, and I thought, I can't believe I'm allowed to enjoy school this much. And I was excited to go to school, which I was not. I didn't. I wasn't like the kid who was usually super excited to go to school in the morning or even be up early. None of it. But I was really excited to come here. And I just remember thinking, I almost felt this can't be real. Are we cheating? Looking back, it was such a rich experience, but it wasn't delivered to me in a way that's just so you know, you guys, this might be fun, but this is good for your spirits. It wasn't delivered that way. It was just an experience that was super, all-encompassing. And it's true that the students who really thrived in visual art, but maybe didn't want a huge part or a lot of lines, our teacher took all of that into consideration. We didn't even have to beg for a certain part or a certain role in the whole production. I remember our teacher just really taking time to give each of us a role and or task that was really good for us at that time. When we were in the 6th grade and girls were chasing me around all over the place, my teacher gave me a role with very few lines. He's like, this is gonna be the balance for you. So that was Poseidon. I remember the line. And I remember thinking as a 6th grader, what? I have so much to offer. But looking back, I understand why my teacher gave me role that I remember was very pivotal in our play, but like didn't get all the attention. I'm grateful for it. And the costumes, it's green velvet.
All saying I'm laughing because like that's exactly it. Like it sounds like fun and play. There's a lot of thinking behind it. I did like your teacher, what she did here, my teacher did all the way in Brazil. So that cannot be a coincidence. And in our case, I remember we had a lot of students that kind of like were interested in the same roles. And then the way she solved that, like we had 2 days of like the play presented to the parents, and like we swapped the roles. Like so, it got even more complicated because you got to memorize like two roles, etc. But like I remember the assignment being like perfect, and not that we asked for it. She know like each individual what they need. And the other thing is like, yeah, it sounds like fun, but like we were doing Shakespeare. Like we're not doing like, I don't know, whatever childish plays are there. Like we were reading Shakespeare books and like then we were translating that and like making the play together and writing the lines together. So it's a lot of work. And yeah, I still remember some lines here in Portuguese. I'm sorry. But yeah, a lot of things and skills that you all said.
I'd like to turn things over to our audience. There's a lot of things we could touch on. Typical questions, I'm not saying you're going to ask these questions, but typical questions are like, gee, the Waldorf sounds nice, but you know, what happens when you get in the real world, or if you go to a public high school, you know, is it going from small classes, a nurturing environment to cold, hard, real world? How do you manage? Someone may have that question. But before I ask for you to raise your hand, I'll give you the mic. I'm struck by one thing, which is Fernanda just said, that her listening to her fellow panelists here discuss their Waldorf education, especially early childhood through grades. How similar it is. And actually that is, I think, by design. So whether it is in Paulo, Brazil, or in the Netherlands, or Marin Waldorf, or in New York, going to Waldorf school, the common thing is really the curriculum and the teachers. All the teachers are different, of course, as individuals, their talents, their abilities, but they're trained. Whatever academic training or educational teaching certificates they may have, they also have 3 years of specific Waldorf teacher training, which is the immediate translation into the school is that they can take the curriculum and they meet the children with the phrases, meet them where they are. What that is that the curriculum, as rich as it is, and sophisticated and rigorous as it is brought to kids at the right developmental stage. And it's nice to hear that it's the same whether you're in South America or Europe or East Coast or the West Coast here. But it's not an accident. That's by design. And then the last thing I think I'll say is that, enough for me. You won't say anything else. If anyone wants to start off the question, let me know. I'll bring the microphone to you. But definitely.
So, great stories, love them. When it comes to, and we discussed individual development and give maybe a couple of examples of really fascinating with your peers in school and what it means maybe for such a classroom and what type of what whole relationship with your classmates and meaningful examples that
I can start with that. So our class was 18 students, and we worked together for a long time and with the same teacher for a long time. I remember I'm very different, and I was very different and still am very different from all my colleagues at that time. we're still friends. And I think that's a very big thing for me. Learning how to deal with different people and like to become friends and to respect each other's differences and like the bond that we created. I think someone was saying about the teachers that like how much they care and how much we overshare with them as well. My teacher still today is someone that is important in my life, and I think that is the kind of relationship I got from my years at Waldorf. And I would say the same thing in school. So like we are here. Like I truly love this school at Waldorf, and I don't feel it's not the same with all the schools. It's not the same with all the schools or like the college or the MBA that I studied. It's a different bond that you end up creating as a Waldorf student, and it just puts me at ease to know that in the other side of the world, we moved here from Brazil, like, and my son will have the same experience, amazing experience that I had. And that deep bond, like the bonding and the relationship that I had with my classmates was a big part of it.
Sure, I can definitely speak to that too.
Before you do, Michael, just in case, because I don't know what they all know about Waldorf and this school in particular, 1 through 8. The idea is you enter the class, ideally after preschool and kindergarten. You enter class in first grade, and the classes are not large. You know, they're anywhere from 15 to 30 or so, 26. And then the class stay together, 1st through 8th grade, and oftentimes with a lead teacher, a class teacher, as their teacher, 1st through 8th grade. They don't teach all the subjects, but the main lessons, but that's a constant 1st through 8th grade. So the same group of kids are together from the ages 7 or so to 13, 14, 1st through 8th grade. And so, it's a tight-knit group typically of anywhere 15, 20, 25 kids.
Yeah, in my experience, in terms of the closeness of our class, what I really love is that we were never, there was never a blanket thrown over our group that we all need to be the same or achieve the same wonders. When I think of it, this school felt so much like a little village when I was going to school here, and that each one of our little classes was kind of our own tribe with our teacher and our own special guide, and every class had its own character, which is, I'm sure, still true today. But the difference between, I would say, the way I think of my former Waldorf classmates and all the other people I've gone to school with over the years is that, I've gone to school now with hundreds of people, or I guess maybe thousands of people through college, but most of them disappeared from my mind. However, my Waldorf classmates, however physically distant we are from each other, like I was telling some of the alumni the other night that I was in touch with a friend from my Waldorf class, and we haven't seen each other for probably 20 years, maybe more. And she has like 2 adorable kids, and they live in Vermont now, where I've never been. And she said from the bottom of her heart, like, if you ever come anywhere near the Northeast, come stay at my house. And and it gives me kind of the chills to think about it, because she was telling the truth. It wasn't just like a pleasantry. Like it was like it would be a gift in our lifetime if we get to sit next to each other and catch up and laugh about like all the times we had in the redwoods and the oaks over there and all the silly, blackberry messes we made. But I knew, and I still know, and it really warms my heart, that there's this little collection of people. Like we're not all lifelong best friends, but there's a closeness that we remember, and it's different from the other closenesses you feel in your life, because we were just little kids. Where oftentimes in our culture you aren't even given the chance to be close with your peers like that. And we all have the space to kind of become, or to be who we wanted to be in our little tribe. Some of us were just like excelling at the Greek sports, and others were excelling at whatever else, and we gave each other all that space, and our teacher held that for us. So I have to say
my experience is really similar to these folks. 15 years after I graduated high school, 5 of my classmates were my bridesmaids in my wedding. That I think to this day, my closest friends are my Waldorf classmates. And it's because of that bond that you forge and how you see each other grow and have appreciation for the people that we are becoming together and supporting each other in that journey, I think is a really special bond that's formed through that Waldorf relationship that's staying as a tight-knit group through those years. And I think I had the experience because I went to Waldorf High School as well. It's very common for in 10th or 11th grade to do an exchange program for a semester to another Waldorf school around the world. And I think it was like 2/3 of my class between 10th and 11th grade did an exchange. I went to South Africa. My father was born and grew up in Zimbabwe, and I had a desire to get closer to that and meet family that I had that lived there. So I went there, but most of my classmates actually went to foreign language speaking countries, so to Switzerland or Germany, France. And when we came back in that second half of our junior year, there was this incredible energy and excitement to discover who we had become and what we had learned in that experience. And that experience of studying abroad is actually one that will stay with me forever, because it really forces you to challenge all your worldviews as a 15-year-old. But I think that experience of coming back together really solidified that bond for us, and that appreciation for who we were all becoming as individuals.
Well, not much I would like to add, because it's been very similar for me as well, but maybe from the perspective of our two daughters who are now in high school and how they look back at their time here at Marin Waldorf School. The social aspect of being in school is really important in Waldorf education, right? It's not only you sit next to each other and you learn something, you're being taught some content and then you go off into the world, but the social fabric of the class, together with the class teacher, as has been said, is really a key part. And what that means is that, over the course of 8 or 10 years, you stay with the same classmates, or the core. There are people who leave, there are people who join, but there's a core. And what that means is that you go literally through, thick and thin. There's hard times, and there's conflict, and there are the harmonious times, and the times in which you feel, hey, we're all winning when we're on stage doing our class play. And that hones skills that are really important once they go off into high school and the civilian life. So the social aspect, and I think it's just, it's genius to keep that core class together. And that's not always easy, right? But that's the way things are, right? And our children are just incredibly grateful and have very strong relationships with our former classmates because of that, because they went through things.
Yeah, I think, like everybody, I'm really close with the people from my grade, but we're not all in touch anymore. We all spent, a lot of us spent 10 years in the same moment, going through every little thing together. And, you go your own way, but there's always that it's like almost like a sibling bond, right? It's like after that much time and that much interaction with somebody, like you don't have a choice but to love those people. It's like, you pick your friends, but you don't pick your siblings, and like, that's how I feel about my Waldorf class. It's like they kind of can do no wrong. I will always love those people, and they will always love me, and that's just the fact, whether or not we're in touch. I think another thing about the social aspect, and like I can, there's when you tell people out in the world, it's like, oh yeah, my graduating year class was 19 kids. People are like, oh, that's weird. Like, you must be a weirdo. And but I went right into public high school, and like I went to Sanford High, which is a really like socially traditional school. It's like all the hierarchy and cliques and cheerleader prom queens that like are indicative of like the American like 50s public school like experience. And I found that to be really stifling, right? Like you fall into an archetype when you're put in an environment like that, and while yeah, you're around a lot of people and you learn how to like interact with this like default like way that students interact, you become really stifled and you become that archetype, whereas here you're nurtured not only by the teachers but also by your peers to just like be yourself. Like, you wouldn't force your sibling to fall into an archetype, and I feel like that's similar here. It's you just are yourself. There's no pressure to fill a role, and it's really positive for your self-image, your confidence, like we talked about before. And then like with those skills and the ability to understand people like that, you actually turn out to be somebody who's like kind of compassionate and not really like a standoffish weirdo. Right? You're like more accepting of people and more able to like fit into conversations and just sort of like vibe with people because you can see them for who they really are, as opposed to like, oh well, you were a jock in high school, so I'm not going to be friends with you. Because that is not a thing that I think Waldorf kids really default to. I think that's how it is for me.
Questions? Anything else?
Question.
You and then
Go ahead. Yeah, so the question's about transition. We just talked about transition to using I have a fourth grader. So kind of transition in, transition out. It's just how that goes relative to your experience, and then on a broader sense, how that group kind of brings in that person and how that sort of integrates.
Yeah, you want to share your probably oh yeah, I'll say from kind of two perspectives. As the fourth grader entering this school, first I thought, whoa, like this classroom. I thought my classroom was so beautiful. Like everybody's being so like gentle with me. Like I have a space with my name written on it, and I have like all of my tools that are just for me, and I have a cubby with my, like it was shockingly welcoming. Like compared to, and the school where I went was right here in this district. I grew up in Terlinda, so it was a great school also for in a certain way, depending on what you want. But my parents were thinking like maybe Michael will really thrive with a little bit more attention to the arts, and then I mean I just like exploded onto the scene. Well, the fourth grade scene. So as a student, I remember thinking at first, I mean, I only really felt like the new student here for a few weeks, maybe less than that. My teacher really took the time to meet me and know me. I mean, she retired at the end of that fourth grade year, and she created a book for each of us. She wrote and watercolored a book for each of us with verses about who we are. And I thought, wow, like I've only been with this teacher for 1 year, where many have had much more time with this woman, and she wrote a book about me, and I thought like, it was so unexpected, the wonderful things that came through and from this school, that I felt like extremely held and welcome, even in a little community of children who I knew had known each other for years already. So that was a surprise. I still remember it to this day. And then as a teacher, when I see, so I've taught at Live Oak Charter School, which is a Waldorf-based charter school in Petaluma, also a very small campus, lovely place. And they pretty much adhere to the same principles that we did here at Marin Waldorf. But as a teacher, I see the same thing. And it's the most beautiful thing, really, even in middle school, like these really difficult, well, challenging years for anyone. A group of 7th graders would welcome another 7th grader who's not been with them since kindergarten at all. And you wouldn't know who was there at the origin and who just arrived yesterday. It was like incredible, like, and really, really, really beautiful too. Like in a process that could be, could have tons of stress for a young person. It just, there's so many projects and collaborative thinking and different ways that we approach the experience for that child, that it's kind of ironed out. All the weirdness, all the kind of like crust, like stiffness is just sort of, it doesn't have a place in our day. Leaving Waldorf, because I kind of did like a public-private thing, just whichever school was feeling good to me at the time. And I'm really grateful because my parents really did give me the space to be where I wanted to be. But yes, I would agree that like going to a larger school was a little bit shocking. Maybe like when I eventually went to Sonoma Valley High, it's like, I don't know, maybe 1,500 kids, which is not even huge for an American high school, but for me it was like a group of kids, but you still have the Waldorf with you. I was a nice guy. You know, you make friends. You may be kind of like, whoa, my teacher's not quite caring as much about me as my teachers used to. They don't need to know about how my day was, or they don't want to know. But the Waldorf energy helped in terms of being a young person in the community. You just learn to be open and welcoming and like, here, take mine. Sorry, it's a long answer, but it was very important to me as a kid.
I could add or specify a bit to the question, and we have another question to get to, but Waldorf, let me ask you this way. Whether your transition was from K through 8 to public high school, or K through 12 to Harvard Business School, in your case, Jasper, or to University in São Paulo, or to Wellesley, in your case, were you prepared? Did Waldorf, were you prepared? And not to denigrate students from other educational disciplines, but one question is, well, it's a choice. Waldorf education, even though it may be seen or perceived as outside the mainstream, is over 100 years old now. This school is 50 years old, so these methods are on one hand tried and true. But, well, how did you find yourselves? Were you prepared for whatever the step outside of Waldorf was?
Well, if I may, I want to talk a little bit about transitions and then move to your question, Todd. So, transitions are hard. They're hard for kids. They're hard for us. It's difficult. And what helps make a transition happen and be successful is if people are genuinely welcoming, open arms, and look at how the school is welcoming all of us today. That's the spirit of this school. So that doesn't mean that a transition will happen, in all cases, like that. It's a process. But if the process is really, genuinely fed by actual love and care for the children that are coming in, that will, make it possible. And talking about, and this was our family's experience coming to this school about 5 years ago. It's hard, certainly in middle school. It's difficult, and then, they feel that, hey, there's an openness, and I'm really being seen for who I am, and maybe more importantly, for who I can be and who I can become. Right? Waldorf teachers always see the children a little bigger than they are, right? Of what they can become. And talking about the transition, after Waldorf, I think, and Jack, you said this, I wholeheartedly agree. Waldorf, teaches us how to learn, right? This is the place where you go, where you learn how to learn. How many things, who saw COVID coming, right? And knew that everything was going to shut down and our whole lives would be upside down. How do you deal with that? And there's so many things in life, professionally, in family life, that, hey, here's a curveball. How do I deal with it? It's something new, right? Stuff that we learned in school may or may not be relevant anymore today, right? That's for all of us. So how do we deal with that? And do we have the capacity, the capability and the courage to say, I can figure this out. I have no idea how it works, but it can't be that hard. That's what you learn at Waldorf. That was my experience. So when something got hard, it was like, okay, let's figure it out.
I have something to add. So when I graduated from high school to college, so first, I do remember the transition, but I also remember very clear, knowing that I knew how to adapt and I knew how to learn and I would be all right. And I think that was an important piece. And then I applied to colleges, I got accepted, that wasn't a problem for me at all. When I was in the middle of my university years, Google became a thing, technology companies became a thing. No, we didn't know that by then. So nothing, right now, I don't know if they're gonna be around when my kid gets to that age that I was. So when you're ready to face the world, who knows what's gonna look like 10, 5 years, 15 years from now. But that learning how to learn and how to adapt, I hated technology. And I kind of still not a big fan. But like I know I can find myself around it and I can learn, and that comes from like that whole like experience that we were talking about. And I also one last thing, like I remember very clear when we were, I think it was 5th grade, we had a student, new one, coming to our group from Portugal. We were all so curious and like really wanting to learn more about her. That is very like much what you're saying, like we wanted to know about her and to get to know her and to have her as a friend. So like I think that welcoming, that like wanting to learn new things, etc. I think that stays with you.
Can I say something about that? I just want to say something about like being prepared like for other school, because like the first time I saw a Scantron test was like my finals my freshman year of high school, right? And the reaction was not like, oh my god, this is like hard, I don't know how this works. Like for me, Waldorf school and this education here, like not only did I learn more than at any other point in my education, but it was also more challenging. Like the education here it's rigorous. Like there's a lot of information. The teachers are, what's so amazing about them is the amount of knowledge that they have, and they share all of it with the students. And so, you know, you show up in high school and it's like, yeah, you got to fill out a Scantron. It's like, this is it. Like I'm used to my teacher comparing this to everything I've ever done and giving me a grade based on that. And it's like, that's a little bit more of a, you know, challenging testing environment when you're being graded against yourself and not against like some sort of standard. So I think like being ready for other academics, it's the best way to get ready, you know?
My question is the same way.
Okay, so we're just about at an hour. I'll give one last chance. Yes.
I just want to piggyback on something that Jack just said. My daughter graduated from this school in 1986, and then she went to Marin Academy in San Rafael. And not that I was overseeing all her studies or anything like that, but I don't know what it was, like World Civilizations or something when she was a senior. I said, Jess, you never are studying that. She said, oh, Mom, I learned all that in Waldorf. 4 years
Save yourself some money.
Perfect. Well, on behalf of the panelists, let me thank all of you for coming here today. And Chantal, you have a closing word for our folks?
Just a closing remark. Thank all of you. Thank you, Todd, so much. This has been a really special day for our school. I feel it in my heart. I can almost get choked up. People who know me, I cry all the time. I couldn't help it. There's really something deeper about Waldorf. And if you felt it today, and you know that this is your place, I'm the person to talk to. I get so many emails I can't keep up, so please just call me. This is about people and getting to know each other. There's a whole wonderful process for those of you who have older children where they spend 3 days with the class. After 3 days, you know and they know and we know, is it a good match? And so that's that. And preschool and kindergarten families, there's so many of them. Most of them had to take their little ones home. But applications for next year are due by January 31st, and then we'll go through the process together. And I'm just, as a Waldorf mom, I'm so, I have 3 children. My daughter's in high school now, my twin boys are here. And so to hear all of your experiences, it just makes me so happy I found this for my children. And I really want to appreciate everyone who came, all of the teachers who worked so hard today. And this is a very special place. All the parents who put on a beautiful spread for all of you. Please go. I don't know, I think we ran out of pizzas in the garden. I'm sorry to tell you, we cooked all 100 of them, so those are maybe over. But thank you for coming. The event is now closed, and have a beautiful rest of your weekend. And come play anytime on our campus on the weekend.